Hello, welcome everybody to today's Lunch and Learn. We are joined by Adrian Buckley from Fifth World. He's the Regen land designer for the consulting team, and will be sharing with us his experience and knowledge and talking a bit about his project, Calgary Harvest. Just a few quick housekeeping items. Uh, Throughout the event here, this session, I highly recommend that everybody keep their video on, and that just helps us all stay a bit more engaged. If you have any questions for Adrian through this event, be sure to put it in the chat and put it in all caps. I won't take it as you're yelling at me. It just helps me identify the questions a little bit more easily. And also, please get to know one another in the chat throughout the duration of the session as well. And there will be a time, of course, at the end for some live questions as well. I'm sure all of us will have. So without further delay, Adrian, if you could introduce yourself and kick things off.
Awesome. Okay, thanks. Thanks so much, Ben. And it's very exciting, and I feel honored to talk about this project with you all. So you guys can hear me, right? My signal's coming through. Great. Awesome. So yeah, as Ben said, my name is Adrian Buckley. I'll just sort of go right to that screen now. This is me. And I am, an ecological land designer at Fifth World. I have been, sort of in this line of work for a good while now. I am a plant geek, so I'm fascinated with terrestrial ecosystems. Certainly plants, but sort of had a bit of an epiphany a little while ago. And while as awesome as plants are, and as interesting as they are, I think it's really about the habitat and the connections that plants offer. It's kind of like a scaffolding that a bunch of life starts to occur around, and neat things start to get traded around, and energies get exchanged. And I think these are the things that really fascinate me each and every day. So of course, on that vein is the topic of local food. And the ecosystem or ecology is quite literally the study of the house, and how various creatures and organisms and people, which are also creatures and organisms, make a living. And actually, this is sort of what this project is all about. And that is Calgary Harvest, which is the latest name for a project that has been running in the city of Calgary in Alberta, southwestern Alberta, for over a decade now, actually, in various orders of magnitude. So I officially started this project in 2009. However, it was quite informal. In many regards, it still is quite informal, and it's gone through ups and downs and various iterations. But it's, in many regards, it is a passion project, and so really, what it is simply said, is Calgary Harvest it's a community organization that brings people together to make local fruit get more used in the local food system. And how it started is that when I first moved to Calgary from Nova Scotia, from where I'm from, I lived in a fairly inner city neighborhood, and one of the first things I noticed that next growing season, that next summer, was how much fruit was collecting at the base of fruit trees all around the city, and really going unharvested. And it's just it turned on a light bulb. It turned on something, I don't know what you would call it, that began to beget some curiosity, and it was actually around this time that I had first met actually someone else who helped found Fifth World. Now his name is Rob Avis, and so I was just learning about this thing called permaculture, at the time, and so yeah, after some beer and some conversations and things like that, this idea was born to see if there's grounds for an experiment to create an initiative to see if we could get some of this excess and wasted fruit into the hands of people who could use it. So that's really been the whole premise of this organization. And so the yeah, back to that time in 2019 where I saw the fruit happening, I literally started going around on my bike and printed some pamphlets and stuck them on people's doors, into a couple of mailboxes, and so forth, just with some instructions on what people could do if they couldn't or didn't want to harvest their fruit. And it was just basically saying that, yeah, if you can email at this email address, and we'll see if we can arrange somebody to come and pick some or maybe even all of your fruit, and see and yeah, really get into the hands of people who can eat it, or into the hands of other organizations, even charitable organizations who could get that fruit to people who are hungry and who don't really have access to food. So once that happens, then we set up a basic website, and then these registrations, these new records of data started coming in, and we actually started seeing people who we didn't know start registering their fruit trees with their addresses onto our website, which dumped it into a spreadsheet. And in its first season, that actually jumped to 250 trees. So it was way more than we could do with, and so but we managed to get out and do some. The first season, we ended up harvesting around 15 of these fruit trees, and so from that point we decided, well, it wants to grow and we don't know how to grow it, but we also need to connect with and let more people know that, like, what we're doing, and ideally see if we can connect with more people who might want to join us to pick some of the fruit with us. And so we approached the media, and then a newspaper article came out in 2019, that October, and pictured here, and yeah, so we actually started to see people sign up as pickers. I'll explain a little bit more about what that means in a second, but basically we started seeing two little networks starting to grow, and that's people who have fruit trees and people who want to pick fruit, and that's and then there's been some more media articles since, and each time that we went to the media, the especially the amount of trees just jumped, and so to the point that we're like, let's not go to the media anymore, because this is way more than we can handle, which is actually still currently the case. So so today there's well over 1,000 trees that are in our system, and as this map shows, this is a map of Calgary. I'll just scroll quickly to another screen here to get another look at this, and this is just a basic GIS that we put together, and you can see there's trees everywhere. These aren't classified by type or ripening period or things like that. It's just, if we scroll over the city of Calgary, which is a city of 1.6 million people, these trees are spread all over the place, and it's like this huge orchard sitting in the grasslands here to the east of the mountains. And these dots represent a whole set of different types of fruit trees that are registered. We only have about the capacity currently to harvest about 10% of these trees. So every year, we are basically harvesting a subset of these trees, and which is like, it's great that we have so many registered, but this is also one of the biggest sort of challenges that face us, because of course we want to be able to reach more and more and more of these trees every single year, and there's more and more being registered every year as well. So yeah, this really represents one of the biggest challenges for us. So in terms of the types of fruit that people register, there is all sorts. There is a berry fruit known as a Saskatoon berry, highly delicious and nutritious. We have gooseberries, which is related to currants. There's even some raspberries. In terms of the tree crops, believe it or not, Calgary has apricots, even though we get -35 in the winter on some winters, including last year. There is pears, apples, and crab apples, as well as cherries and plums. And there's even a butternut tree that we've discovered, which is essentially a type of walnut. And so it's fantastic, and it's amazing in terms of what is available and what's being offered up in terms of being available to the community. And this is the really moving part, well, and that's what we'll be talking about sort of as we go along on this presentation. So in terms of other types of trees, there's also the dimension of time. Many of these trees are starting to set fruit in late July, and then August you see a dominant crop of cherries in the city here. About 4 different types of cherries, mostly known as sour cherries, as well as sweet and sour cherries. Given Calgary's drier climate here, as well as the colder winters, it's not the best place for growing the sweet cherries. We have basically all of the cherries here are related to Mongolian and Siberian cherries that tolerate -40s in temperatures in the -40s degrees Celsius. And so yeah, so that's the main cherry type. However, they're very useful, and they're also quite delicious. Now, and then there's, yeah, as I mentioned, there's plums. But yeah, in terms of the apples, the apple is the dominant type of fruit that's harvested, and there's apples that are starting to ripen in early August, all the way to mid-October. And so we have a fairly long harvest season here in terms of fruit. There's even a bush called a honeyberry, which is ripening in June. And so around mid to late June is really when we get going. And then we're, depending on the fall, then we're wrapping up around mid-October. So that's almost half a year. So yeah, it's quite an activity, and it's really, really neat to be engaged with people and delivering to the food system for almost half a year. So, all right, onwards. Now amongst all these trees are some real gems. There is types of fruit that we don't even know what they are. Like in terms of varieties, there's types of apples that, after years of research and speaking to nurseries, we don't know what they are, and yet some of them bear extraordinary characteristics. For instance, there are super late season apples, as I mentioned, that are at their prime as frost happens, and even during late snowfalls that we get here in October. And they're of incredible quality in terms of crisp, fresh eating quality, surpassing really anything that you can get at grocery stores or organic markets. Full of taste, full of sugars, full of nutrients. And these types of apples also have incredible storage capabilities. they can store unassisted right until February and March. It's remarkable, and so, but we don't even know what these types of apples are. Um, there are there are others that are incredible for cooking. We have some crispy green apples that are larger than softballs. That also store really well. And in between, there's one that we jokingly call the lemon bomb, because when you eat this sweet apple, it actually tastes like you have um, that there's lemon juice inside it, and it's like a light pale yellow, um, ripening in late August, and so it's all across the board, and so there, like as the photo shows here, there's variants of plums that have a tiny little pit, bright orange flesh, some of the most incredible tasting plums that we've had. We have an idea what this one is. What's interesting about this particular one is it grows true to seed, which is sort of rare among um, the fruit varieties. So you can actually harvest the pits out of these and start new trees, and this is what you're going to get, these incredible plums. Um, what's also amazing is they are self-fertile. So the point I want, well, I'm getting into details, but it's sort of fun just to share some of these interesting plants that are growing inside the city of Calgary here. There are other um, apples, including the original Hardy Mac, and the Hardy Mac is a type of apple it's a progeny of the Macintosh apple from Ontario, which doesn't survive the winters very well here. This is a cold hardy variant, and the original tree that nurseries have propagated, and now when you go to the nursery to buy an apple variety, one of the varieties that you can purchase is a Hardy Mac, and all this progeny came from this original 108-year-old tree, and so that's also on our network. I could go on, but the big point here is that Calgary is a fairly new city that is it's subject to a very strong property development industry here, and we're seeing an alarming rate of homes being torn down, and along goes these rare and irreplaceable trees. Um, and so, and I'll be talking about this in a little while towards the end of the presentation, but just to preface it is that it's going to be very important to note these varieties so that we can find a way to preserve them. Because when you go to the nursery or the plant nursery, or you go to the store, really the supply and the type of apples in the industry is extremely limited. You see maybe 5 or 6 different types of apple, and that's it. And so where we are seeing tens and tens and tens, we estimate that there's well over 50 different varieties of apples across our network. I didn't actually count that. It's very, very likely higher, actually. So it's going to be really important to start to preserve some of these types. So okay, onwards here is, so as I mentioned, there's currently over 1,000 registered trees in our city of 1.5 million. And in terms of like why do this kinds of projects? Well, this is just some basic elementary math. But with that, there's 1,000 trees, and on average, an apple tree can provide the seasonal fruit needs for about 5 people. So this is just reason alone that if we were able to get to all these trees, that's serving the population of a small town of people, and this is even before the project grows. So if we can successfully and reliably do this, this is going to spawn the conditions to do this and scale up essentially. And it's basically what we've seen with this project is that when when things do go well, there's an appetite and there's a magnetism to try and make it grow. And really, the biggest I'll have to admit the biggest barrier to growing this project has been me. It's because we haven't turned the project into an organization yet, and so its operation is based on a very limited number of people. This year, it's really been an evening project for me, and which has been fantastic. It's been great. It's been an honor. But this project wants to explode, and so that this is it. We've really only recently acknowledged this, and now the intention is to start doing something about that, and I'm going to be able to share some of the ideas for that. But what in terms of why we want really our mission is to learn together, to find, harvested, used, and store local fruit for our collective community needs. Then we want to be able to start to show other people how to do it. And this is where I think this is actually really connected with VDAO, for instance, is that we want to see this start to replicate. I think somebody mentioned to replicate this on a neighborhood scale, and absolutely, this is going to be some of our next moves is to start working with our local community associations here, and start dividing this into little manageable chapters. And starting to share the tools of how that can be done. So, all right. So in terms of how it works, really at the highest level is when people hear about the project. Let's say a homeowner or a property owner who has a fruit tree hears about the project. They register their tree on the website, which is calgaryharvest.org. And so that registration form gives us certain information about each of the trees, when it ripens, where the tree is located, if there's anything we need to know about when harvesters enter the property, or things like does the homeowner want to share the fruit, and people register their trees. It's typically people who like they don't have the means to be able to harvest any of it or all of it. Perhaps usually the tree is so large that after they pick some of the low-hanging fruit for their own needs, they just can't reach it. And typically these are, I don't want to say neglected, but they're trees that aren't receiving sort of care like you'd see in an orchard. They aren't regularly pruned. They get, some of them are quite massive, and they are very difficult to pick. And so those are the types of trees that we're generally seeing. And or people have aged, and there's barriers to be able to harvest it. Still, there's a whole segment of people who are just not interested. And so it's amazing that these people are then registering their trees and essentially offering a gift to the community. So it's with extreme gratitude when we see these registrations come in. So while that's happening, there's another segment of people upon hearing about the project that are deep in the local food. They believe in the local food system. They believe in anti-fragility and other things like this, and are also concerned about like pesticides on conventional industrial produced foods. Like a whole gamut of reasons impel then people to sign up on our website as pickers. We used to call pickers volunteers, but we quickly realized that's not really what it's about. Is instead this is a group of people who want to have spend a nice crisp fall day picking delicious and delicious fruit that's free of pesticides, and meet new people at the same time. We've seen actually people date, start to date and form relationships. It's amazing the the interweaving of people that we've seen on these pics. And so that's sort of rewarding to sit back and watch. Now, right now we have about 600 people signed up as pickers. So that's also sort of quite a substantial number. And essentially how the project works is it behaves much like a giant U-pick. So we arrange these harvest events happening at a certain place at a certain time, and then people come out to do the harvest. They divide it up amongst themselves, and then they leave with their bounty. And the we usually and many of these events, a staff member or a volunteer for Calgary Harvest then also comes out to facilitate the harvest, or the homeowner actually is something that we've been doing as of late, because we don't have a lot of staff and at the moment, and so the homeowner has been facilitating the pick, and essentially what the volunteers or the pickers then do is they fill up 2 buckets, and one is share the fruit for the homeowner if they want it, and the other bucket is receiving fruit, generally good quality fruit, that then we pick up and then we bring to a charitable organization. So like a food bank, or there's several church kitchens or school kitchens and things like that. There's a whole gamut of organizations that we then bring that fruit to, who then distribute it to either in fresh form, or they value add it in a commercial kitchen, and then that gets used by their members or their clients, and for segments of the population who have who don't have access to food. So that way it's sort of the general model is that fruit are going out to people who pick it, and then it's going back to the homeowners, and then it's also getting into the food system in other ways by charity, or as well as we give some to other businesses. We partner with a local jam maker who's actually really quite productive, and she makes jams and preserves and chutneys and things like that from vegetables and fruits from the area, and that's sort of her business model. And so we're hooking her up with pears and crab apples every year. So that's true to our mission. We just want to get this unused fruit used, and hopefully it can start replacing some of the conventional food that's coming in from far off places. And perhaps it's an ignorant statement of mine, but it's still, every time I scratch my head, is just like, why are we getting so much fruit in from New Zealand when there's such a bounty that's growing here? And I know there's, like, of course there's seasonality and things like that, but it's just, we want to see how much we can offset. As a vision. Great. So every season we are trying to figure out, are there more efficient ways to do this? Are there new and novel ways that we can make the harvests faster, and get more off of the trees as well? So these are sort of like everyday challenges that we're I think solving bit by bit every year, every season. So that's a little bit about how it works in general. So I'm just gonna, unfortunately, I don't. Oh, this might actually work now. So I'm hoping that the audio from this little video short that I'm going to just about to roll for you is going to come through. I may have figured it out. So if there's no audio, that's all good. But what you're going to see is currently our latest way of getting the most amount of fruit. In this case, it's a pear tree off the tree. That are super wily trees that are normally would be almost impossible to harvest, other than the low-hanging fruit. And we're using simple equipment. Essentially, we're using extendable poles that have $1.50 boat hooks on the ends of them. And then we just purchased, in this case, a big tarp that we cut a slit, and then we can wrap the whole tarp around the base of the tree. It's a 40-foot by 50-foot tarp, so it's huge, and has grommets on the ends. So you can actually hang it off of things like fences, or we have little poles that we can get it off the ground, and so that they don't bruise at least as much. So let's roll the video here. Hopefully the audio comes out. Did the audio come through?
Yeah, the audio
It
came
did.
through.
Fantastic. That harvest right there was about 400 pairs of pears, by the way. That was done in about 30 minutes. So it's pretty fun to do. And so especially in that you can use reasonably inexpensive equipment to do this. We basically got every single fruit off of those trees. In fact, there was 7 pear trees on that site. And we cleaned them all off. So that was a lot of fun. So and it was effective. So on average, we can get down approximately 200 pounds of fruit per harvesting event. Certainly give or take. Some have a lot more, some have a lot less. Really, as an aggregate, we're looking at around 200 pounds down. And over the last several seasons, we've been doing about 60 harvest events, which is a fraction of how many we could run. Really in the last couple of seasons, it's about 60 of these events. But that alone, just doing basic math, is getting us to around 12,000 pounds of fruit. And this is highly delicious and nutritious fruit from essentially going to waste and rotting on the ground. And then we're helping to weave a bit of a community and causing people to meet, and also we feel that, like, whenever we see these events happen, this is a little facet of what really resiliency is going to look like in terms of local fruit. In this case, is that people are learning how to do this with inexpensive equipment. We're using free IT tools to organize all of these things, and this is essentially stuff that anybody can do. This project could be divided amongst. You could have them in every town. In fact, actually, in Alberta, there's more and more towns that have fruit trees in bear areas that have grizzly and black bear, and so they're looking to find ways of they're looking for ways to find out how to get this fruit harvested to prevent bear human conflict, other than just chopping the trees down. So Ben, should I take some of the questions now, or do we want to take them, sort of create a Q&A period and log the questions in the end?
I would say whichever one you feel most comfortable with doing, Adrian. There are 2 standout questions currently. One is the 1 to 2 for volunteers. Trees ratio, is that working well with that value? Otherwise, what would be ideal? That's coming from Jason. And then another question coming from John is, what do you find are the most common reasons that these tree owners haven't been harvesting? Is it a lack of labor expense? I would imagine it is a big one.
Yeah, maybe it might be good to handle some of the questions in situ here. So Jason, for your question is when we're setting up a harvest event, we always get the homeowners to send a photo of the tree with the fruit on it, like just to kind of get an idea, and then as well as a close-up of the fruit, of course, as well. But so it's actually some trees do only need about, like, for one tree, there's about 2 volunteers or so, whereas other ones we had to make a call of inviting about 10 people out. And it just sort of, it depends on the variety, and of course just the size of the tree as well, and but we're trying to get better and better at matching the number of people we invite out to a harvest event to the conditions of that tree at that year. Like even the same tree puts on a lot of fruit one year and doesn't put on very much fruit the next year as well. And you can get that sort of cyclical nature to them. And so this is some of the communication protocols that we have when we're setting these things, which is actually quite a bit of work. I'm going to be getting back into that a bit because we have some ideas and some initiatives that we're going to do to make this more feasible. We essentially, as a global statement here, is we want to go through almost like the challenges and the difficulties of doing this kind of thing so that we can try and address many of these challenges. And once we start getting some success in terms of addressing these challenges, then we want to create a bit of a like an open source playbook that then other people can sort of pick up and get running right away, right? So we want to deal with all these things head on, so that it becomes easier to set these sorts of projects up in other places. So hopefully that answers your question, John. In terms of your question is, so what do you find are the most common reasons tree owners haven't been harvesting? That's it. It's these, a lot of these trees are wily. They're getting big. There's also sometimes the fruit doesn't come off the branches very easily. It can be downright dangerous to get up there on a ladder. And many people are aging. We'd say probably over 50% of the tree registrants. That's actually hard for me to say that. I'm going on past experiences. It's amazing. I've personally met about 70% of all the tree registrations in the last 3 years, and it's like I can remember people's names and address. It's crazy, and the reason why I'm saying that is that a significant portion of them are actually elderly, and so which means two things. One is then like we're there to help get these trees harvested. The second thing is the house and the property and the tree might get owned by new people in the near future, which actually put these trees in jeopardy, as I mentioned, because usually when a property sells in Calgary, the house gets torn down, and yeah. So, but yeah, those are the main reasons. Is it's hard work to get these down. Most of the fruit is high up; it's inaccessible. Or it doesn't come off the branches very, very, very easily. So sometimes sometimes the fruit isn't very palatable out of hand. You need to use the fruit to in terms of cooking or processing. So there's a variety called the Hare number 12, which is one of the first apples here to ripen in mid to late July. Sorry, August, that is. And it's a green, almost yellowish green, very thin-skinned apple. And they really don't taste that good when you eat them out of hand. But when you make desserts or you cook with them, even chop them up and put them in salads or what have you, when you start to incorporate that into different ways into food, they're almost par none. They're amazing. They were, I think it was the Morden Research Station in Manitoba, Canada, that originated this variety, and it was originated for cooking. So things like that as well. So there's generally, like, most people that we found actually don't know of the variety or its uses in terms of the apple trees that they have. So a lot of these apple trees were actually purchased for their blossoms. That's the case of the Dogal crabapple, which I'll be talking specifically about here in a little bit. And because they flower prolifically, and so they're very, very beautiful trees in the spring. But then people have a mess on their hands because all the crabapples fall on their sidewalks, and their walkways and their cars and their gutters. So yeah, this is many reasons. So
Thanks
now
for the
for
answer. Can I
sure.
ask a quick follow-up? This is all completely fascinating. I wonder if you mentioned like some of these areas, houses are being torn down when they sell. I would imagine, the trees might be the first to go. So I live in New Jersey, and a lot of programs to, retain trees, shade trees and others, and you have to have is there an element of getting the city, involved in the benefits of keeping, trees, especially fruit, from getting taken down?
Hmm. The city, I think the answer is yes, for sure. Like our city, council and administration has they steward a pretty strong urban forestry program, which is great here. And then there is more and more push for fruit trees, and all that. In fact, actually, a lot of city parks now you see quite edible trees. There's some excellent pears, on public land, and but the thing, yeah, like the thing is that like there, I don't, and I'm not saying this to be, what's the word I'm looking for, cynical, um, or anything like that. It's more just an innocent observation. But what's happening is that because of the value of land here in the city, it's such a fast growing city that like there's a very strong push to subdivide. So a lot of these older lots are full lots, and 9.9 times out of 10, then these get subdivided into two lots, where the house, then the incentive is to create, you maximize the floor area to a per lot basis. So you're actually seeing a loss of gardening space and more house, as a general sort of phenomenon that's happening in the city. And so I'm not, unfortunately, not aware of any programs that are like, this is a unique tree. It's in a strategic location. It's going to lower your air conditioning bills and things like that in the hot summer and all that. That we haven't seen any evidence of this sort of statutes or trends in terms of this style of thinking. There's been a couple of architects that I've seen that have really, I've seen a couple of houses that were actually built around the tree, and it was amazing, but it's unfortunately quite rare. So, but this is an important point, because I think this is going to be the role of these kinds of organizations as well, is to really make a case for these trees, especially the really rare ones, and be able to discuss their ecological and climatic services, which really do have a value attached to them. So yeah, hopefully that takes care of your question. Good, that's a good one. Thanks for raising that. Well, I'll take one more question, and then here we'll move on. There's a question about thoughts on city pollution and fruit production on high traffic streets. Yes, this is a good one as well. Right now, what we're doing is we're just basically instructing and recommending to people to give their fruit a good wash. It really is the sort of the best move that we know we can do. Like when you rinse the apples in the city and all, that's crazy how brown the water gets right away. It's nuts. So yeah, I think I don't have too much more of an elaborate answer for that. I think, and this is my own personal bias, is I would still even, well, one more thing on that one is we have generally been doing our harvesting like a fair good distance away from the major arteries. So we have a couple of big highways or major streets here, which we generally stray away from those ones. If there's also any mention, like we do get people to certify that they don't have anything sprayed on their trees, as well. So now, in terms of, yeah, like the trees that, and like really the air quality, and this is a whole other chapter. These things that are blowing around are definitely arguably more intense near the arteries, but like we get strong prevailing winds in the city, and those things are getting blown around sort of everywhere. And but the thing is, and this is a personal bias of mine, still based on limited science, of course, but I think I'd much rather wash and eat these apples than really touch anything that's been in sort of the industrial sort of pesticide system where these materials are even designed to not get washed off by rainfall and things like that. So yeah, it's definitely a conversation that will have various stances and schools of thought on it. So I think more research is needed as well. So okay, I'm going to move on. I'm going to talk about this other component of the project that we have as well. And this is all in the vein of in terms of like, how are we using this fruit? How are we storing this fruit? And these are all tenets of the main vision and mission of this project. And so when the project started, the year after the project, or 2 years after the project started, that is in 2011, we got a little EcoTrust grant and we purchased a old-fashioned cider press. And this thing must weigh 170 pounds. It's cast iron and built out of hardwood. And it's been operating full throttle ever since. Now, mind you, there are much more advanced versions of juicers where you can pressurize water and they happen 10 times as fast. But this thing yet has been getting a lot of mileage because it's solid state and it just doesn't break down. And so what we do is this juicer is made available to the pickers of Calgary Harvest, but it's also rented out to the general community as well. And we rent it for a small little fee. Currently it's $25, so it's not very much. But anything helps because we are actually behind the scenes fundraising for this project. It is an informal project, and we are recognizing the need to have a larger operating budget. And so we are actually fundraising. And some of the fundraising that we're trying to do is by I can't say that word today, experimenting with little mini enterprises. So really the smallest of these mini enterprises is the juicer. And it's super popular. This thing gets rented out like 50 to 60 times every season. It's booked nonstop. And what's cool is that people rent this out and they have these little backyard juicing parties. So that's like 50 or 60 juicing parties happening around every season in Calgary, where people are harvesting their own apples, or they've gone out on a Calgary Harvest event, and then they're harvesting their bounty and crushing it and turning it into cider or juice. And you can, for an hour's work, depending on the variety of apple, you can crab apples for about an hour's of harvesting time. You'll get about 2 liters of amazing juice, all the way to regular juicy apples. You get 8 or 10 liters of juice for about an hour's worth of work. And it's super fun to have these juicer parties. We're actually, given the demand, we are preparing to get a second one of these units. So, and that brings in a tiny little amount for the project. We can get about $300 or $400 into the operating budget every year from doing this. It's not a lot, but everything helps. And so I'm just going to show a little video of this.
Look at the juice. Look. Sorry.
So it's this juice. If you ever had like apple juice or pear juice or an apple pear mix, or throw some raspberries in there and all that, in any of the above there, the juice it's unreal. The taste is like you cannot find this from products that you'd buy in a market or at a store. It's just you need to get out there and squeeze it yourself. It's incredible. And this juicer has been a fantastic move for us for for dealing with like where there's surpluses, where if a group pulls down a lot of fruit, it's just like, oh my gosh, I already have more than I need. What are we going to do with this? Well, then right now we take that as the project. We'll juice it and then we'll distribute that to our members, and as a way of just preventing that from going to waste. So so that's the juicer has been a real advantage. So I'm just looking at the questions here again, and we have how do you choose the right time to pick a specific tree? And then do you use the database to alert owners and remind them that their harvest date is probably now or soon once some similar trees have started to be harvested? So this is a very awesome forward-thinking question, because this is actually I'm going to actually address the chunk of this in a bit later, if that's all right. But just to give a prefacing answer, because we're going to talk about this, but just to give a quick preface is, yes, we have a communication protocol with the homeowners. They give us a ripening date, which is broad and approximate, but then we have a sort of like a communication funnel that allows us then pinpoint when it's at its prime. Sometimes we miss it, but we're getting better at getting it right on. So yeah. All right. So I'm going to talk about crab apples now. This is the next chapter here. And pictured here is the Dogel crabapple. It's a variety of crabapple that's from it's a Russian breed, Russian variety, I should say, of apples. Dogel, the word Dogel apparently means long in the Russian language, and that's because the fruit is not circular; it's actually oblong, and the flowering period on the Dogel crabapple is also longer than really any other apple, and which is advantageous for pollinizing other types of trees. The Dogel crabapple actually also bears a higher density of flowers than really any other type of apple I've ever seen. You get so many flowers that you can't even see the leaves, and so as such, they've been extensively planted around the city of Calgary as an ornamental tree. And so, but it was this fruit was the one that I noticed first, sort of hanging from the branches and starting to fall on the ground in late September. And I personally like tart things. Some people don't, but this apple has like a sweet tartness to it, but it's intense. It's a very powerful taste. And they're scarlet red like this. And like as I mentioned, this was the initial tree that I contacted that helped inspire me and get into these conversations with Rob Avis about seeing if there's a way to just get these used. And so and really to this day, this type of apple is an sort of an internal it's an, how should I put it? It's like, I'll put it this way. These trees are exceedingly challenging to harvest because they bear a lot, but that yield is not born onto a small number of large fruits. Instead, you get thousands and thousands and thousands of smaller fruits, which hold onto the tree a little bit more. But they're everywhere. And so with this one, I didn't want to, I guess I didn't want to give up right away on these ones. And I wanted to see, and still going through the rounds of seeing if there is a practical and an efficient and feasible way of getting these trees into the food system, because, well, they produce the best jelly. And that's not coming from my own food tastes. It's recognized, the jelly is recognized as Paranan. It's excellent. It's also a natural form of pectin. So if you mix these in with other fruits in terms of making preserves, you don't have to get this like pectin from external sources. this fruit has a lot of fibers and anthocyanins. Like they have a very high antioxidant component in them as well. And so there's a number of reasons that we should be using these. And so the wine, cider, juice, even mead are excellent ways of using these, which are still unfortunately overlooked. And so again, the difficulty is harvesting these and then processing the fruit as well. So these are the two things that we really do need to figure out. And so this is an ongoing quest, and it's an ongoing experiment to see how far we can get to get these trees on the map. So what we're doing about that right now is we started a pilot project. We began that last season. So this season was its second take. So far things are going well. And what the pilot project is that we hypothesize that because there's so many of these trees around the city of Calgary, and given that they're planted mostly for ornamental reasons and not for fruit reasons, that people don't want to really deal with the mess that comes afterwards when all the fruit drops, especially after a frost. They turn it into jelly and they kind of go splat and all over people's cars and things like that. So we hypothesize that maybe people are interested in paying Calgary Harvest to come out and harvest these trees. These trees aren't very popular with our community harvest event picks. We do a couple of them, but generally they aren't so popular. So it's just like, all right, well, that's not going to be a reliable model for seeing if we can get these trees into the food system. So we have to try something different. So on this hypothesis, we sent out an ad to the crabapple Dogal segment of our registration list and say, hey, like for a fee, would you be willing to pay a fee to have a team of harvesters come out and pick what's feasible, majority of the fruit off these trees for you, so that we'll even just take out a rake and tidy up the property after we leave, and we'll bring that fruit to somebody who can use it, and you just pay us a picking fee. So believe it or not, a bunch of people said yes, we want to do that. So essentially the fee, out of full transparency, this year we set it at $150, and then we pay 100 of that goes to paying two harvesters to come up with poles and a tarp to pick this and deliver it to an organization who can use it. And so basically what that means is really most of the fee is going to pay these beta harvesters, which is excellent. And then Calgary Harvest holds on to a little markup, if you will, that again goes into our operating fund as yet another small self-funding component. So yeah, and so far so good. It's in terms of the time that's put in, it's been repeatedly worthwhile. It's very hard work, but for the right employee, we've got reports that it's a sustainable and it's a fun job to go out and do on evenings. We had some high school students or university students already come out, and as well as some people looking for landscape journeyman credits and things like that. And so it's so far been a real fit. So there's certainly some tweaks and some things that we need to change to make things more efficient. But at this point we believe it's scalable and could turn into a micro enterprise to then fund the further operation for Calgary Harvest. Once we can sort of prove that this hypothesis, and that these potential experiment results are indeed correct, and that this is viable, then there's no reason why this then can't happen in other places. So we right now we bring the crab apples to other organizations. We just give them for free, but even this is something that we may investigate. It's just there is a value to this fruit, and so we already have one jam maker who I mentioned earlier, and she's like thank you for offering to give it for free, but we want to pay you. And so we are receiving some money for the fruit that we give. So that will add to its feasibility of sort of being able to earn a little bit of an income on both ends of this. So we're going to do it again next year, and we're going to just to scale it up. We did about 15 trees, 15 big crab apples at three. Let me do a little bit of math here because I can't do it in my head. So, if we have 15 trees multiplied by about 3,000 pounds, yeah, it's about just under 5,000 pounds of fruit is what we did. How do I get my presentation back? I pressed the wrong button. Let's see. I have to reset the whole thing. Just give me one moment. Let's see here. I have to turn that off and try it again here. I have to get away from that and find that presentation. Sorry, forgive me, guys. I literally can't find my presentation right now. So it's lost in the ether. So I guess while I'm talking about that, while I'm trying to find this and getting that to return here, we unfortunately have to use all my brain power in order to find that. Let's take a brief intermission while I figure out how to recover this. Just forgive me here. We need to go to Safari.
Yeah, I was gonna say there's no way I could figure that out while trying to talk and continue the presentation.
Yeah. I can't believe how tough it is to find this. Calgary Harvest. Okay, so I think
it is showing your screen. So
there we go. There we go. Okay, we're back in service. And we'll just do our presentation view again here. Oops, it's still kind of, there we go. All right, I did not expect that. So there we go. We will get back on track here. Okay, so fast forward. We were right about here, I think. So
sorry to interrupt, Adrian. You might want to maximize that window, so it's a little bit more visible for everybody to see.
Thank you. Yeah,
no worries.
Thank you. You got it. Perfect. There we go. Excellent. Back on track. So some further ideas is like in terms of now where do we want to start taking this project is I'll start with kind of the ones that are going to be relatively more simple to implement, which we have a high chance on being able to implement, which are going to lead to some efficiencies and essentially being able to get more fruit from each tree, as well as doing each tree faster. So we and even higher level than that is we realize that we actually have to treat Calgary Harvest a bit like a business, even though the purpose of it is not for business reasons. The purpose is to be able to sustainably and reliably and in an anti-fragile sense keep the operation going, so that we can keep getting the fruit collected and used, even if we don't get grant applications and things like that. We need to be able to reliably do this, and this is sort of where some of these ideas and this round of initiatives that we're going to hatch are starting to come from. So the first one is we I whipped up a sort of a prototype that we're going to be getting manufactured before the 2025 harvest season, and it's sort of like a super duper harvesting net that you can wrap around the tree. It's very lightweight. It's very easy to stuff and demobilize, as well as very easy to mobilize when picking crews go out. We also are even experimenting with the idea of piloting certain fruit tree owners and setting this net up underneath their trees. We get a lot of wind here in the fall during the harvest season. And so then we come to these sites and it's just like, oh my gosh, all the fruit's on the ground. And we have a policy that if the fruit hits the grass, it's unfortunately has to go to the waste because we don't know who has had their dog like pooping around the yard and all that, and E. coli and all that stuff. And so if it hits the ground, it's disqualified. And so if we could use the wind to do our harvesting for us, that would be fantastic. So we're thinking about actually piloting by deploying these nets underneath the trees in the week in advance of us coming to do the harvest, so that we first collect this fruit and then shake the rest off, and really seeing what the mechanics are behind that. But that's what this tarp is going to be. It's like a 1/2-inch netting, so the bugs and the wind and the leaves and the water pass right through. It's just sort of collecting the fruit. So and then also in the slide is our dream, and that's to get a cable shaker. And I think this dream is it's inching closer to reality now, where you can connect this to any unit that's able to provide PTO power, and you connect the cable to the tree, and then you can shake the tree off. But this works to getting into awkward places where it's hard to get the equipment right in. And so because this is going to get us to, like, in terms of the crabapple harvesting initiative, we can get about, if we get the timing right, we can get about 70% of the fruit down. But that takes 2 harvesters working very, very hard for about 1.5 to 2 hours on site collectively. So that's 3 to 4 person hours. When we use something like this, we're gonna be able to cut that into about 1/3 or even 1/4. And so it's kind of fun to go and do it manually. And we wanted to be able to demonstrate that this can be done with low-tech equipment, and it's very, very possible. But right now, when we start to combine this with, we have an additional imperative to make this project and prove that it's a sustainable model in terms of being able to fund itself. And so this is where some enhanced tools like this are going to, the relevancy starts to increase. So that is going to be, the tarp's going to be completed for the 2025 harvest season. In reality, the cable harvester or an equivalent tool is going to happen in 2026. Now I'm just going to poll through questions here quickly. All right. Okay. Awesome. Nice. Thanks for all the comments, guys. I can't wait to read this thread. Now, the other initiative is harvest. We're finding out where the fruit is. We're figuring out how to harvest it. But the other part of the equation is, how do you store it for use when fruit is no longer in season? This is really also going to be a key aspect. Any resilient and healthy ecosystem is capable of capturing and storing resources. And so this whole conversation is no different, right? And so this is a picture of a mead making workshop that we hosted through Calgary Harvest last November in our living room. And this is actually one of many events that Calgary Harvest has been now promoting, working with local practitioners and educators to pass on knowledge to people. Mead is extremely nutritive, so it's actually really quite good for you because it's a carrier of nutrients, and it's also, of course, an excellent way of preserving food. And so here we demonstrated making a sea buckthorn mead, which is another local crop that you can grow here. And as it had the fruit and the leaves in this mead. So an increasing priority for us is to increase the reach and the breadth of workshops that are occurring to start passing on knowledge and capacity building. We're starting to realize that while there's many workshops happening throughout the city, we're starting to think that's actually going to be Calgary Harvest's role to really to be a place where knowledge and the activities concerning the local fruit supply occur. So we actually are starting to realize that we might need to become a bit of a hub for making these connections and making these connections and this transfer of knowledge happen. So sort of on this, we also have our sights now on designing and launching a crab apple festival, which has actually been the idea has been alive for years. We just have not had the capacity to get it there. So, but now we're starting to get closer based on some of the initiatives, some further initiatives that I'm going to show you here next. The ability to start getting these off the ground is the day is getting near, which is very exciting. So we want to do a crab apple festival to celebrate this underutilized fruit, where we can share stories about how to harvest it, how to use it, and things like that. Even get some live music going and things like that. But really have a celebration about fruit in general, with a particular focus on the crab apple. So we're hoping to be able to launch that by 2026 as well. So still a couple of years off. So in terms of other moves coming down the way here is something that we're going to be implementing right away, really before this winter or this year is out, is changing our information technology system, which is basically we're using Eventbrite, we're using Google Docs, and right now it's all manual labor. It's actually quite a bit of work to organize a harvest event and do the communication to figure out what tree is right when. It's reminding people that they've signed up for a harvest event, making sure that they have the address, managing a wait list when people need to kind of attend the event. It's like it's an absolute full-time job, but there's a lot of work that needs to be done. There's a lot of new things to hatch on this project, and so basically we came to the realization that we don't want to be doing work that a computer could do. So we are going to make the move to bring in people who can help us automate the systems and really create a really purpose-built, slick system that is going to take all of this manual labor away, so that we can focus on the things that actually do take that are going to take our minds and our efforts. So that's going to be coming down the line right away. We may need help on that, but there's a couple of you here in the meeting actually have already stepped up to the plate. So again, in advance, thank you for that. The next is going to be a big move here by the time the harvest season of 2025 begins. Is actually opening up a full-time job description to operate the project. It's my personal goal to actually, I want to pull myself out of operations of this project for the next harvest season, and have a full-time position doing this with somebody who's a lot more capable and is a lot more savvy than I am, so that I'm no longer in a position of actually being the limiting factor for this project. I'm going to stay, of course, on the board and direct it. But someone who's newer and better is going to be able to really take this far and wide. So that's my personal goal with this. And this position is going to involve writing grants, everything from writing grants to doing business development, striking new partnerships, and ultimately during the harvest season, actually running the operations of this project. So another old idea that through this job description, through this job description is going to be one of the responsibilities is hatching a third micro enterprise. And right now, for lack of better names, we're calling it the Juice for Bankers. It probably needs a better name. But the reason is and where the idea came from is that because the juice is so darn delicious, and nutritive. We want to actually want to create a bike powered stand kiosk where we serve freshly squeezed apple juice, potentially even squeezed right on the spot, in front of Bankers, because our first one will be right outside of Bankers Hall on Stephen Avenue in Calgary, where it is where during our warm falls, it'll be a pretty. We hypothesize that it will be a nice addition. So we're going to get our Alberta food safety certifications and things like this, and go through all the milestones to get that off the ground. And then proceeds from that, if we get the business model right, we'll then also start helping to fund this project. The next is we actually want to transition from an informal organization to become a full-blown registered charity by as soon as 2026. This is climbing a priority for us, because then we are going to have access to more grants. We're going to have more, there's going to be more credibility and recognition. We're also going to be able to apply for different types of grants where they actually supply the labor as opposed to the money. I'm thinking about an organization called Tides Canada, which powers Canada's largest gleaning operation, which is called Not Far From the Tree in Toronto. And so after some conversations with them, we're actually quite stoked to see if this could work for us. But yeah, it's going to involve changing our business structure. So, and this way there'll be a team of people, and decisions can be made jointly and things like that as well. So we are pretty well decided that this is going to be the right move for us. Now, last but not least, we want to start a fruit tree grafting project. And the timeline for this might be even a little bit later, because this is going to require the formation of some key partnerships. But really, the idea of this alludes to something that I was talking to you about at the beginning of this talk, and that is to start preserving the rare, and I'll say endangered genetics fruit tree stock that is being lost to Calgary's development industry. And so we actually want to use Dolgel crabapple rootstock, which is very deep-rooted and very hardy, and start grafting on these varieties that we find to ensure that we can propagate these rare species. Because many of them are unnamed and are unknown, we want to give them the botanical name of the last person who owned that fruit tree. So it would be like Malice. If your last name is Mackenzie, it would be Malice Mackenzie, which sort of try and change it into Latin. And so I'm being somewhat silly, but I'm actually also pretty serious because we may have to rename varieties, and these eventually could be brought back into the nursery trade, certainly for available for permaculture food forests. And work with the city, with its urban forestry department, and these sorts of things. So we want to work with nurseries to become a bit of a genetic bank for these increasingly rare trees. So this is something we're hoping to be able to launch and work with the appropriate nursery in 2027. And this is going to involve some research, and to do this, we're actually going to go through all of our tree records and apply for funding to do a bit of a research study and to identify the various trees that are out there. 1,000 trees is sort of overwhelming, and it's well, remember, many of them it's hard to keep track of those. So we want to find the gems and re-identify them that are in our network. So that's coming down the line. And finally, for an ongoing basis is that we want to create neighborhood versions of this project, so that instead of running this project for an entire city, we want to break it down into little divisions that various groups and community associations are running themselves, where harvesting gear and equipment can be made available at the community level, and it makes it a lot more accessible to people to participate. So as we figure all the and catalog successes and of all of the ideas that I've been talking to you previously, then that's going to start figuring into this step. This is where we start to this will officially begin the giving back stage to make this model available to other people to sort of pick up the reins and start their own versions of this project. So I think I'm getting near the end of time. All right, so forgive me if we went over, but we are actually. I think I'm near what I wanted to say. So what I think I'm going to do is I wanted to offer one more piece, and that is just a couple of lesson learned. And the lesson number one is that I think I may have already mentioned it, is that we it's like this project really wants to grow, but it's been prevented from growing in many regards. And I think one of the big thing is that we didn't adopt a business development mindset on this one. And so it's like we also need to approach Calgary Harvest as a lean startup of sorts, where the motive is not for profit in this case. It's to ensure its conditions for operation will always exist despite fluctuations. So that's our main thing. We just did not adopt that mindset really until now, nearly a decade later. And the that essentially that's our top lesson. We have all sorts of lessons in terms of the operation of it. There's been many failures in terms of using different IT packages and ways of operating the harvests, how we get people to sign up. We had a bad year of like no-shows, and so the harvest events, our harvest events, when we post harvest events, they're filling up, selling out within 10 minutes of them being posted. There was even a couple that I haven't even finished publishing it to our mailing list that it had already filled up. Like the demand is nuts, which indicates an appetite. There's such an appetite for this, and so this project has been so far has been a victim of its own success, because we have not been able to have the right mindset to sort of scale it up properly, and so this is when considering doing such an initiative in your own area, this is where you can sort of already learn from us, is figure out the operations, figure out the workflows, get all that stuff figured out first, because it's going to make then growing and scaling the project way easier. We spun our wheels a lot. I think we've wasted valuable money a lot. We wasted a lot of time and things like that. However, we're fine with that. We're absolutely still thrilled because of the potential and the groundwork that we think this is also creating. So we're happy to be the guinea pig on this one. So with that, thank you. That's the broad strokes of what I wanted to share with you. So I'd be more than happy to create some or answer some questions.
Yeah, so if anybody has any questions, feel free to unmute yourself and ask Adrian. And then just on top of that, I just want to say thank you, Adrian, for sharing your absolutely fascinating project with us. I think Calgary Harvest has lots and lots of potential. Obviously, sounds like it's had some really great successes so far, and just really cool to see it and have you share it with us today.
Yeah, my pleasure. I do see a question here. Could you offer a service of planting and managing fruit trees on to your council? Let me think about that one. I'll answer it sort of broadly in here. Is even when I was putting together this presentation, it's crazy how many like little sub ideas no pun intended, but buds. Actually, the pun was intended, I have to admit. But these little buds, in terms of budding ideas that come up because, like I think with food systems, and this sort of environment, it's like there's huge grounds for partnerships and sort of beneficial exchanges, if you will. And I think sort of all of them are worthy of putting on that business mindset and seeing, yeah, what are the business model for these little things, which is like, as I mentioned, this is the very thinking that we didn't do earlier. And I'm not by the way, I'm not naturally a business person at all. I'm a dreamy sort of artistic type. And so it's probably was another lesson learned is or adding to that lesson learned. So I think in terms of like offering a service of planting and managing fruit trees, potentially, and even like I was when I was putting together this presentation, it's just like, what if, like, would it make sense that Calgary Harvest would employ nurseries to prune people's trees that are on the network? Could we offer a pruning service so that it makes them easier to harvest? And that could be a thing, right? And so the answer to the question is I don't know, but I think it absolutely could be if we can get the micro enterprise right, for sure. So.
Yeah, thanks, Adrian. This is super interesting. And I'm involved with VDAB on the governance circle, and we're going through or asking a lot of these, similar questions. You're obviously ahead of us in time, but about, like growth and operations and scaling and governance, of course. So really excited all this. And then one of the things you said at the end about the demand, for this when you post something, it makes me think that obviously there's fruit trees all over the world. There must be, every city and municipality must have the problem and the opportunity. Have you heard of other projects in other cities doing similar things, whether it's with, fruit or other foods?
Absolutely, yeah. Fruit has been the big one. So Toronto, the city of Toronto has the biggest one, and it's definitely a role model because they're now like selling things to markets. They're actually, as a part of the project, canning the food itself and making that available to the grocery sector. Like it's amazing, and so they have an extensive project, a very, very active labor force on that one through the Tides Canada work, so, but then there seems to be more and more and more. Calgary Harvest is actually also partially inspired through Edmonton, the city of Edmonton's version of the project, which is called Operation Fruit Rescue, which is, I haven't checked in on them in a long time, actually, oddly. So I'm not even sure if they're still operating. But but that was, they were operating in the early days of Calgary Harvest. And Manitoba has one, and they actually developed a really neat IT tool. And so I think the Harvest Moon Society might be running their version of the project now. And there's even, we even got contacted by someone in Hawaii. Now, the United States, actually, I think they're even more active there. They actually have a national gleaning association that we're on their mailing list, and so they're offering workshops and knowledge and lessons learned, things like that, to help various projects, which is utterly fantastic. We actually, to be honest, I haven't tapped into that resource nearly as much as I should have, and so but so there's more and more and more resources. BC has several. There's some small scale ones happening in other places in Alberta. There's one in Halifax, Nova Scotia now. So the thing is that there are more and more of these, and these might be nice little additional nodes for community initiatives to start forming. We're currently closely associated with the Calgary Permaculture Guild. They've been very, very instrumental in sheltering our project and helping us along. And so, which illustrates the connection, how these things can be connected to then other organizations. We've actually worked for several years with a particular charitable organization who actually did the harvesting for us, for their clients. It was like a capacity build for them, which is something that would be excited about. That went dormant during COVID, but yeah, we're going to be working to then lift that back up again and build upon what we built pre-COVID with them. Yeah, so lots going on, and it's upwards from here.
I have a question for you, Adrian. I'm
Mhm.
curious about how you've been growing Calgary Harvest in terms of getting people to sign on as pickers, and just getting like general community involvement. What have you found that's been the most successful in that venture?
Nothing. It's entirely through word of mouth right now, and which is a great property to have. So in terms of more people learning about the project and signing up their tree, or other people signing on as a picker, like usually people bring a friend out, or they tell their friend as well. It's like it really wants to grow. It's amazing. What has been and more difficult, and what's going to actually require some like tactics and work, is discovering mutually beneficial partnerships. Like we want to get the crab apples to ice cream makers, but we have not done that yet. And there's some local ice cream shops here and things like that, or leading edge restaurants or things like that. But those partnerships definitely take a lot of the figuring out, and those have always been us. The ones that we've developed so far, pretty well 100% have always been us, like learning about another organizations and thinking about, I think there could be grounds for partnership here, and then us like basically cold calling. Fortunately, some of them have heard about us when we did reach out to them and all that. But it's so that takes active work, and so when we do create this new job description, this is going to be actually quite central to the role. It's almost like an ecologist, like how and a permaculture designer. How do the needs and yields actually match up, and to sort of foster these sensical and two-way conditions and working relationships. So yeah, hopefully that gets to the root of your question there.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I think I saw a question from Danilo on here. Let me. Do you think there would be a potential for building an open source software solution to help with logistics that could also help other similar projects around the world?
An extreme yes. I'm thoroughly convinced of that. And not only that, I think it's imperative that we build a state-of-the-art purpose-built software, which would be expensive to a business and all that. But I think it's been a barrier for us. And so we don't want it. If we do end up creating, which I think we will, creating a really good tool for this, even if I try to put a business development hat on, I still maybe there's grounds of I don't know, I guess earning some kind of return on it, but I don't know if that's, and I don't know if we would want to do that. I think because it's almost contradictory to the mission of this organization, and I think other organizations, and that's to get the fruit harvested and used. And so if we are the ones who are creating a purpose-built tool, we would like to make it, and we also think it's possible to make it open source, and which could be either a custom built piece of software, or it would be a stitching together of free or inexpensive existing packages, and they're connected together by tools such as like Zapier or things like that. Whichever form that it takes, it's going to be like it's going to be functionally very important to make that and share that with others so that this work can get done. So and at this point, I think it's possible and feasible to do that. We were like the Manitoba group did hire someone to create a tool which worked quite well, but the tool we as much as we pleaded, they required $15,000 for us to gain that tool. So it's just like, it's a fantastic tool, but we just can't do it. And so we had to not use it and not benefit from that. And so we don't want to, no judge, like not casting any judgment at all, but it's just that's an approach that we don't want to do. Instead, we want to make it available. So.
Great. So just being conscious of time, we have a little bit of time left, maybe for maybe one or two other questions, if there are any. Feel free to go ahead and unmute yourself. Otherwise, I just want to remind everybody that next week, VDAO will be hosting a Twitter Space or X Spaces with Dalton Combs, the CPO of Jasmine Energy, to talk about the future of energy. And yeah, just want to say thank you, Adrian, for coming forward and sharing with us what you're working on. I'm really keen to see it grow and develop and kind of where things are headed, and definitely want to stay in touch with you about what that journey looks like. And yeah, very, very, very cool. I expect that someday that we're going to see an Adrian playbook for Calgary Harvest to come out and be able to replicate that elsewhere.
You got it. Thanks so much. It was my pleasure.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Adrian. Thanks, everybody. Really fascinating. A lot for us to talk about, Ben.
Yes, yes. There's a lot to discuss. This is definitely got the gears going again. That much more.
Yeah, Adrian, we may need to pick your brain a little bit more. Digest this, but really great.
Sounds good. Just let me know. Yeah, we'll always be happy to take it further. So
Thanks so
Definitely.
much.
All right.
Right on,
Thank you,
guys.
everybody.
Adios. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.